Hello everyone and welcome to another Scots Whay Hae podcast, and today I'm joined by Pauline Lynch and Fletcher Mathers to talk about Secret Wrapped in Lead, the debut production from Braw Clan, a new Scots language theatre company. And before we get into the particulars about the play itself, Pauline, can you tell us a bit about Braw Clan and your role in it?
Yes, well, 2 years ago, I think, Fletcher put me in touch with Martin Travers, who's a playwright who lives in Lanark, and he was interested in setting up a theatre company down here.
Right.
I'm in Biggar, and I'd long thought that we should have a theatre company down here because there's so many actors living in this area, but I didn't have the first idea of how to go about doing it. But Martin did. So we met for a coffee at New Lanark, and we just hit it off. We had a lot of similar ideas about theatre and what we wanted to be doing in it, and it just started from there. We moved really quickly. We got the company incorporated. We got charitable status, and it's been a long road to get to this point. It's a lockdown company, really, because all of us really understand the importance of communities. That was a lesson we learned through the lockdowns. And so we're based very firmly here in Clydesdale, and we want to make Scots language work for the people of Clydesdale and beyond, taking theatre to places where currently there's none.
Yeah.
And that's it in a nutshell. Yeah, I think, absolutely.
Because it's interesting, I was looking through the tour dates, which we'll talk about later on, but there's places which I know, but I can't imagine many places have taken their theatre there, which is really exciting. And Fletcher, have you been involved right from the beginning as well?
Yeah, I've been involved right from the beginning. It was the very first day of lockdown, I met Martin coming off a train in Lanark. I'm based in Symington, which is just outside Biggar. And he had got the train back home, and we didn't realise each other. We were both on the train, we met each other, and he started talking to me about he was writing a play, and then we started talking about why there's not a theatre company down in this area. And then he put out a questionnaire to people, actually, to the creatives in the area, to find out how they felt. So yeah, I've been involved from the word go, really. But the best thing really was Pauline and Martin meeting, because they're the kind of go-getters, if you like, and they got this up and running. So it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and we didn't do it on our own, of course, because we've also got Claire Yule, who's our marketing director.
Yeah.
Claire's an actor, but like almost every actor, she's had to diversify her skill set. So she runs a small business in Biggar, and she's got so much marketing experience. And when she actually said, "I'd like to help," we were like, "Oh my goodness, great!" So she's like the grown-up.
Yeah, she's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. So really, when you're talking about the engines of it, it's the three of us. Yeah. Yeah. But very much with all the creatives who are living down here, it's been an absolute joy getting to work with people that we've known for years in a personal capacity, but to actually engage with them on our doorstep and see them, bringing all their skills out for this one objective, which is to take the theatre locally, is so gratifying. It's great.
It's lovely.
Because I was going to ask you, did you know that there was this creative community there? You just maybe hadn't found a project that you could all work together, but there was that desire was there, the will was there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if the will was throughout everybody, but I mean, we all certainly thought, it's a bit odd that we've all kind of gathered here in this one wee pocket of Scotland, and it seemed like it would be a shame not to try, I think. So here we are.
Yeah.
And look, we're still smiling at each other.
We're still smiling. We're still smiling. Excellent.
So let's go to the specifically Secret Wrapped in Lead. Before we started recording, I said, is it lead or is it lead? And you gave a very fine answer. Maybe you could tell the listeners about that, about the title. It's an intriguing title.
So Secret Wrapped in Lead. So it's the play is set in Leadhills, where of course there was a lot of lead mining. And it's very interesting. We have Dorothy Wordsworth, who is played by Helen McAlpine. And it's really lovely because Helen and I have known each other throughout the business for years and years and years. I've been in the business for a very long time. And we just realized we've never actually been on a stage together. So it's an absolute delight to work with Helen. And yes, so the story, I don't want to give too much away. I don't know how much I can give away.
No, you don't give away anything of the story, but it's a dark story, and it's a funny story. And with regard to your point about the title, Secret Wrapped in Lead, in the play, because it's a Scots language play, it's actually
Secret Wrapped in Lead.
And you say you can't give away too much of the story, and I won't either, but you did mention Dorothy Wordsworth. So it's based on a true happening between the Wordsworths, the brother and sister. Is that right?
Well, it's an imagining of their journey to Scotland. Right. So
it's a journey to Scotland. That is true.
That did happen. Yeah. They did visit Leadhills. They did stay in the Hopetoun Arms, but Martin has fictionalized it.
Yeah.
So he's put a very nice imaginative twist on it, and his research was taken from her journal, her 1803 journal of a trip around Scotland. And that's where it's from. Yeah. We're sorry about the background noise. We're in Leadhills house in Biggar, and it's a big sprawling place with lots of things going on. We thought we'd found a quiet corner, but we haven't.
It's all right. You're coming over loud and clear. What was the story of the visit? Because I didn't know that the Wordsworth had come to Scotland. Maybe that's a blank in my education. But did you guys know that this had happened? Is this a well-known story that came up here?
I certainly didn't know about it, and I certainly didn't know that they'd been to Leadhills. So I play a character called Mrs. Otto, who is actually in Dorothy Wordsworth's diaries. So right. I play an actual so my character is based on the lovely Mrs. Otto, who's a wee bit harsh, shall we say?
Yeah, all that leaf dust in the air.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know either, and I knew very little about Dorothy Wordsworth, but I've been doing a bit of reading about her since, and I think she was an absolutely extraordinary woman for her time. She's very little known. She is. She's now given credit for contributing to some of Wordsworth's poems, you know, the Host of Golden Daffodils and some of his best lines. And she was devoted to her brother. She had a very sad life. Their mother died when Dorothy was 6 or something thereabouts, and she was taken away from the family home. The brothers stayed with their father, but she was sent to live with an aunt, I think, miles away. So she lost her mother, and she lost her whole entire family at the same time. And she grew up in Yorkshire, and it was a few years before she was reunited with William, and they had a really, really close bond. And she wrote down his poetry. She organised the publishing of it. She had her own writing, and she was never published in her lifetime, I don't think. Yeah, she just wasn't interested in it for herself.
Yeah.
She did a lot of walking. She was a very unconventional woman for the time. So I'm very fond of her.
Yeah, she's lovely. And she's very enthusiastic, and she likes seeing the good in everyone. And Mrs. Otto is the opposite, really. So they're very contrasting characters.
The clash of worlds.
Clash of worlds.
Well, it might be nice to know about some of the other characters in the play, if that's okay, if that's not giving too much away.
There are only 3 characters in it. So it's myself playing Mrs. Otto, Helen McAlpine playing Dorothy Wordsworth, and Morven Blackadder, who plays Primrose, who plays my daughter. So this is Morven's first professional job. So it's very exciting for her. Very exciting.
Oh, excellent.
Yes.
Yeah.
And with a debut production, maybe it's the same as any production, but what stages do you have to go through to get it to stage? Was there kind of, obviously you said you had to be funded to begin these things and to get everything.
Which is such a massive part of it.
Yeah.
Walk in the park. Walk in the park, no problem.
I've tried to get funding for things. I know that's not true, Paul. But that aside, once you have the funding and you're ready to go, how does it start? Was it Martin's script? Is that where it begins, and then you go from there?
Well, no, we had to move very quickly when we found out that we'd got the money. We had to basically hit the ground running because we didn't have a long lead-in time, and obviously I knew the play very well by that point. We'd actually done a rehearsed reading of it locally last year.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah, so May 22, we had done a rehearsed reading in Biggar and in Leadhills, and the readings were sold out, and we knew there was a good demand for it to come here. So that helped us support the funding application. Yeah. So we actually had a good handle on the script from the get-go. Only Helen was new to the piece this time round. We hit the ground running. We had to go out and see all the venues that we're going to, because we're going to lots of different village halls. Each of them's different, has different requirements. I mean, that's going to be fun when we get to that point. So we had to go out there. We had to decide on what our staging was, what size it could possibly be, whether that would fit, whether we could transport it, how to make the best theatrical experience while traveling as lightly as possible into all these little places, because we want to be environmentally conscious as we go forward. And it's just like a series of steps, you know. You kind of think, oh, you don't sort of think, oh, we're doing this to get to a production. It's like, we've got to go and visit Symington Village Hall. That is the big job today. And you go and you do it and you work it out, and then you think, okay, now we need to go to Crawford, and we need to. So that was, from my end, that's what happened, was I had to start doing that, and lots of conversations with Paul Roger, who's our production manager, about the practicalities of it. So when we actually got into the rehearsal room to do the thing that it's all for, it felt like breathing fresh air. I mean, it was fantastic. It felt like freedom, you know, like almost as though this part isn't the job. Yeah. You know? Yeah. The rehearsal part, I mean, it's a job and it's work and it's not always easy, but it's joyous.
Yeah.
And rewarding, and I just feel really privileged to have the opportunity to do it, you know. Yeah.
And for me, for me, it was obviously I didn't have all that. I didn't have to do all that side of it. But for me, the important thing is getting the Scots language right. So often, because sentences are unfamiliar, it's a beautiful language to speak. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's expressive. But sometimes it's quite hard so I've sometimes had to learn sentences phonetically and then start flowing, and as I get to know them and as it gets in my muscle memory, it comes much easier. And there are just certain sentences that you go, oh, let me get my head around that. It's just different sounds for words that you normally say, you know, and you're just so used to saying these words, and you've just got to make them different. So from my point of view, my journey has been, it's a really interesting piece. It's great to play this character. I love this character. She's fascinating. But the Scots language is the most important part, not the most important part, but it's a highly important part of this. So it has to be right. So for both of us speaking Scots in this, there are two characters that speak Scots. We have to make sure the language is right.
And I guess maybe that's doubly so, because I'm presuming that central to Braw Clan is Scots language. It's not just for this one play, the whole company that's central to it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it's unfamiliar. I mean, it's unfamiliar on the page when you read it. For most of us, I would say. Yeah. But when you hear it, it's much more accessible. But as Fletcher says, a lot of it is it's muscle memory, and we haven't been using these muscles. Mm-hmm. These words have fallen out of use. So I think for an actor coming to speak Scots, you have to come with the same energy and the same respect that you would for Shakespeare.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of actors have a level of kind of intimidation with Shakespeare when they come to it. And you have to dive in, you know, there's nothing naturalistic about it. And I think, of course, it's different, but I think there are definite similarities to that. It's to do with
I agree completely.
You can't be naturalistic with it, can you? And not in this play, not the way we're doing it. It's very theatrical. So it just needs an elevation, I think.
That's interesting. Because I always think Scots still at this point is more a spoken language than a written language, in that it doesn't have the same standardization perhaps that English would have. Therefore, you know, you can read books written in Scots and the same word will be written in a different way, but when you say it out loud or you read it, it sounds exactly the same. But so I guess by treating it reverentially, then you don't want to say it different every night. It's got to be, as you say, the same way for the first performance to the last.
And there are also different pronunciations of different words, Scots words throughout the whole of Scotland. You'll find various pronunciations, but we've just had to settle on one, and that's what we're going with in the play, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. There's one word, poison, which is pushing, or sometimes it's pushing. So we had to decide which one we were going with. Is it pushing or is it pushing? So that's it.
Yeah. And because place is so important, not just to the play, but to the company as a whole, you said this is Clydesdale. Did that affect the use of Scots? Because there'll be particular words in your area that'll be different further down in the borders or further up into the central belt.
Oh, I'd say that's a question you'd need to ask the writer, Ali.
Let's leave that to him.
So, but there's no notes as an actor then saying this is the way it must be said.
No, it's we have a discussion and go, right, which if it's unclear, if it's written in a certain way, and I go, I don't know if that's pushing or pushing. I'm not sure. So we discuss it and decide which way we're going to use it.
Yeah, and Martin and Martin's the writer, and in this instance, he's the one, you know, he makes that call. But within Braw Clan, we've had conversations addressing this issue of there not being a standardised Scots. That for us, we're going to have a theatrical Scots. We're going to reserve the right to choose the Scottish words that we want to use and that we feel fit the stories that we want to tell, because people have been steeped in Scots for years and in academic circles, you know, and sometimes they don't agree about things.
They definitely don't. Yeah.
So we, within Braw Clan Towers, we're keeping it as theatrical Scots because our thing is we're telling stories, and that's the name of the game, really. Yeah.
And let's talk about the importance of place. As we say, you're based in Clydesdale, and I was looking at the tour, the village halls. Was that central to Braw Clan, that we are going to be, this is where we are based, and these are the people who we are going to take theatre to?
Yeah. And in fact, in that very first conversation that I met Martin, he said, you know, we'll go to these village halls and we might play to 5 people. And I thought he was off his head. I thought he was off his rocker. I thought, oh, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But he was right. We're here and we're doing it. We're playing at, you know, at Leadhills, our capacity is around about 100 or something like that. But in our smallest hall, I think it's 36 or 38. And we think that's worthwhile doing. I think the evening will be a lovely intimate evening. This is in Roberton Hall. And this is a hall that Braw Clan's used in the past for a different series of stories. We ran a project called Soup and a Story. So we provided lunch for older members of the community, and we provided a space for them to come and have the lunch. And then we provided an actor to come in and perform one of Robert McClellan's Lindmill stories. So Roberton was where we had this, and it was packed to the gunnels, you know. And what we've found is bringing Secret Wrapped in Lead there, we're getting a lot of people coming to that hall as a repeat visit, even though they don't live in Roberton. They might be the next village along, but they somehow have now got an emotional connection with this place. And who knows where it's going to go. I mean, we're still very early doors here, you know, but it's nice to think that Braw Clan's got a part in creating a sense of connection between the people who live here and the buildings that are here as well, which then encourages investment in the buildings and makes sure that they're used and that people think we can come here, we can use this. We don't need Braw Clan to do it. We might have a bingo night, or we might, you know, any number of things. But it's
absolutely true. There are village halls all around the country that are being underused, and to have anything in there proves that they can be used for anything, I suppose.
Yeah.
Do you want to mention some of the tour dates? I don't know if that's suddenly throwing that upon you. Do you have them to mind? Yeah, mind.
It's the 19th till the 29th, is that right?
Oh, well done, Fletcher. Yeah.
Better than that, can we say, where can people find out the tour date?
Oh, Claire's going to kill me if I don't know the answer to this. I might need to look it up.
Braw Clan.
Google Braw Clan.
Wednesday, the 19th of July in Leadhills, but that's sold out.
So there you go.
So it's not much use that I can remember.
There's
that
quite
one.
a few sold out now.
Yeah, I noticed there is quite a few sold out. I had a look.
It's so fantastic, you know, and that's what we want. We want people to come and have a fantastic evening and enjoy. And are we having discussions after every show?
We're having post-show discussions after every single show.
Yeah, which again is really important. It's really important because it makes it a real community event and everybody contributes. So I love those nights.
Yeah. Because we're interested in what people want to say. I'm not being rude, Ali. I'm not giving you any eye contact. I'm just frantically searching the dates of the.
So these kind of discussions afterwards are kind of Q&A sessions.
I found them.
There we go.
Here we go. So 21st to the 22nd of July, we're here in Biggar. 25th of July, we go to Thankerton. 26th of July, Crawford. 27th, Roberton. 28th of July, Crawford John. And then our last night is in Symington Village Hall on the 29th of July.
Fantastic.
Seamless.
Absolutely. But these are places that a lot of people, they'll have seen on signposts driving down the M8, and they won't, these little villages are still going. And, you know, you were saying earlier that your part of your job was driving around to check the spaces out and how they would work. And there are worse places in Scotland to drive around. If the weather is like it is today, to check
it's beautiful. The countryside here is absolutely beautiful and quite remote. I mean, when you're going up to Leadhills is remote. It's, you know, it's far. And on it we had a day out to kind of go to the lead mining museum up there, and it's, you know, and it was a terrible day, and it can be quite oppressive up there, and you know, we hope to get that atmosphere into the play as well. It's a beautiful place, but it's remote. And in those days, you know, a horse and cart, and you know, and you know, you've got the smelter going for it would have been, you know, quite a place.
Yeah, even the premise of the play kind of throws up imagery in your mind, I think, the time, the place, and the people that are going to these, as you say, remote places then, and remote places kind of now as well.
And what lead did to people, what the lead mining actually did to people and did to the men that worked there, and people that lived in places near, you know, that lived near the smelters and things like that. So that's all in the play.
So as we record this, there's a week till your first performance. Fletcher, let me ask you, how's the week running up to a performance? What does that entail for you?
Well, making sure that I know my lines. That's always a good thing. So it's just really focusing to get to and Pauline's been great. So we're doing lots of just running the play in different ways, just to see what else we can find within the characters and within the piece, which is lovely. It's lovely having the freedom to do that. But then we'll just focus in. We'll start to focus in, and we'll have our technical rehearsal next week, which means we'll have the music and we'll have the lights up, and we'll go through everything slowly, so we just know exactly what we're doing. But it's just about focus, and the focus getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and that's what it is. And it's great. I really like. Loads of actors don't like technical rehearsals and things. I actually quite like it. It takes the pressure off you a wee bit. And you can just relax a bit. So I'm really looking forward to performing it, because I think it's a great piece.
And yourself, Pauline, what's the week like for you? Is it kind of constantly on your mind, thinking, "Oh, I should do this, I should"?
Yeah. But you know, it's exciting. It's really exciting seeing seeing everything start to come together, because I've had the ideas in my head for a long time, and seeing them finally bubbling up is so exciting. And I've been assured that the techs are really, this is my first time directing a play.
Right.
So I have been assured by experienced hands that the tech is a wonderful time when you see it all come together. So I'm looking forward to that. We're traveling light, so things like sound is important, and we've not had that yet. We've had little bits of it in the room, but to actually see it properly in the space at the levels that it's going to be at, and the actors finally having it to work with properly. It's really exciting.
And are there any plans to take this outside of Clydesdale? That you might take it elsewhere, or is it
we'd like to do that, because you make a piece, and once the 29th happens, it's a shame to think that that's it, done, never to be seen again. It's important that people see Scots language plays, so we would like to cast our net wider, but always firmly placed in Clydesdale first and foremost. And as a new company, people need to get to know us, and we need to make relationships further afield and see where it goes.
Yeah, because as I was reading the tour dates, I was thinking, wow, there are so many similar villages with similar spaces that would be perfect.
I used to work a lot for Mull Little Theatre when it was the Little Theatre in Mull. Right. And to me, it makes me think quite a lot of that, because the theatre in Mull was very much made in Mull. And then we took it out to lots of places, but it was all grounded in Mull. And I think Braw Clan is very, very similar. It'll all be grounded here. But of course, we want to take it out. It's a really lovely piece, and people should see it. That's what I would say. So fingers crossed.
Yeah. And there's just something, about taking theatre to places where normally there's none, because you reach people who would otherwise never go to the theatre, or who don't think that theatre's for them,
or sometimes aren't able to travel,
or can't travel.
Yeah.
And or if they can travel, then it's 50 miles in the car, and you get 100 quid out of pocket to do it.
Yeah.
So I guess the other thing to say is that Braw Clan, we don't know how we'll be going forward. We don't know what we'll do in our next show, but for this show, we're trialing a pay what you decide method. So the idea is that anybody can come. Anyone can come. You're very welcome to book a ticket. If you hate it, you don't pay anything at all. If you do enjoy it, please let us know, and reflect that in what you're paying. But it's
also, with the cost of living, it means that if people can't afford it, then that's not a big deal.
It's not a big deal.
It's not important,
because everyone's entitled to that kind of human connection. That's Absolutely. What theatre is. It's making people feel something in a communal space, instead of stuck like this on their phone all the time, or just in their living room watching Netflix, or you know what I mean. There's something very unique about people coming together in a space like this to feel human connections and different human experiences, to watch other people have different human experiences.
I'm going to ask you one of these difficult questions again, Pauline. If people do want to come, where can they get tickets?
Oh, that's easy. It's www.brawclan.com.
Beautifully done. Beautifully done. And I'm interested, so Braw Clan, it was put together, and then this is the first play. It wasn't the case that you had this play, and so you put the company together to do it.
The play existed before the company. Martin had written it.
Right.
Yeah, he was certainly in the process of writing it, at least. And it's had development since then.
Yeah.
But yeah, Martin's been writing in Scots for about 8 or 9 years now. So his back catalogue is it's like, hurry up, get on to the next one.
And you said you're not sure what will happen next with Braw Clan. Is it just a case of focusing on this for now, but you do know that there's other projects down the line?
We hope so. That's the plan. Yeah. We're a theatre company. We want to be in a position where we can have projects in development as well. So we're babies. We
are babies.
We're very. It's very young.
It's very young. It needs nurtured.
It's been
And watered
aye.
to grow, allowed to grow.
It's been a long journey to get to this point, and then you think, wow, there's still so much more to do.
Yeah.
So there will be more things coming down the road. There's no shortage of ideas. Our challenge is focusing and deciding what road we're going to go down next.
Well, it must be very excited. I'm very excited for you with this tour coming up.
Are you coming to see it?
I will try my best to come down.
Now, come on, you get your ticket.
I really fancy coming to Crawford John if there's tickets left, because I used to go there when I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
Ah, you should.
Have you been
So
to the
that's
new
what we're
hall?
I haven't. No, I've not been there since I was a
Oh,
kid, so it'd be good
well.
to do, definitely.
You've got a treat in store.
You've got a treat. It's a brand new hall. Very lovely.
When we finish talking, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and grab a ticket, definitely.
Oh, do you see? We're such good saleswomen.
And suddenly 1 point's back for that. Yes.
Claire will be pleased.
Well, Pauline and Fletcher, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, and all the very best with the tour.
Thank you very much indeed.
And we'll be back soon with someone completely different. Cheers.